Today, I'll be sharing about mastering the transformation, 6 essential skills new managers need. If you have a new manager who is realizing that managing their team is different from what they thought it would be, going from manager to leader is simple, but it's not easy. The Authentic Leader Show is the podcast for leaders of managers as they transform their new managers into authentic leaders of teams. For new managers, the skills that got them to their promotion, well, they aren't the skills that they need in their new manager role. Today, I'm going to share 6 essential skills every manager needs if they're going to lead their team to high performance. The first of the 6 that I'll share is communication skills. New managers, they need to be able to communicate effectively, not only with their teams, but also with their peers and supervisors. And when communicating, what we're talking about here is delivering clear and concise messages. It's got to be delivered in a way that it can be received by the person or the people who you're communicating with, which, of course, is a critical skill of a new manager. Part of what new managers are doing in this new skill for them is forming consensus, where before, maybe as a sole contributor to an organization, now in their manager role, they're actually needing to form consensus and agreement about a direction that they'll need to go. New managers need to be active listeners, hear other people's sides of the story. They need to be able to hear other perspectives and be open to possibly learning from other people's perspectives. So they have to be active listeners. Well, how do new managers develop these skills? Well, first is they can seek feedback from others. As a leader of your new manager, you want to encourage them to seek feedback not only from you as their manager, but also to seek feedback from others, the people who are on their team and even peers, other people who observe them in their communication. New managers can also, of course, attend workshops or training sessions to learn about new tools or techniques or frameworks for how to communicate more effectively. They additionally can seek out mentorships or even coaching. The real benefit of mentors and coaches is that they can see from a third party perspective. They're not necessarily in the game and they can see things that their team and their peers and even you as their boss can't see because perhaps maybe you're too close to it. But a mentor or a coach can see it from more of an outside perspective. So that's a way of developing your communication skills is seeking the advice and input from a mentor or a coach. The number 2 skill that new managers need is time management skills. And what we're really talking about here is really prioritizing work as a new manager. New managers need to be able to be extremely efficient at prioritizing work, and they may not have that skill naturally as they first get into their new manager role. Setting and determining the priorities, not only for them, but of course for the team as well. They need to also be able to delegate work and be able to be clear about how to strategically select who's the most appropriate person to do work that needs to be handed out on the team, and do it in a way that they can hold people accountable to get that work actually done. And then managing the schedule and the workload, not only for themselves, but of course also for the team. Over the long term, the new manager should be able to look back and feel that they've done a good job balancing the workload generally over the team as new tasks and new work is handed out on the team. A way of developing these good time management habits is you want to encourage your new manager to use only one calendar, have one planner, one place where all appointments are put in. They may have resources from all sorts of other areas in the organization and other tools that the organization uses, but new managers need to agree on a single source. And this is where I see a lot of new managers get into troubles. They have all these sources, feel like they have to use all of them, and they're juggling between all of these different inputs for where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. They need to own their own calendar or maybe their own planner system so they're very clear about what they're doing when. Another part of this skill is to set realistic goals and deadlines, making sure that the goals that they are accepting are goals that are achievable, but also setting deadlines so that they are consistently meeting the deadlines. They want to. The new manager really wants to have the reputation as someone who, when they take on an assignment, that it's going to get done. It's going to get done completely, and it's always going to be done on time. New managers, especially in the beginning, they are being bombarded with all kinds of requests and assignments and tasks that they're being asked to do. And of course, their team is being asked to do. And part of their job is to prioritize and determine what the priority is, to determine if it's going to be accepted or not. And if not, making sure that they can say no in a way why the new manager is saying no to this, because it doesn't maybe fit into the strategy or the overall goals of the team or the manager. The third skill that new managers need to have is, of course, leadership skills. You're probably not surprised to hear me say that. New managers, they are responsible for leading their teams, not only toward a common goal, but to the high performance that their team and the organization deserve. Part of doing that is really being able to motivate and inspire others on their team, and even peers and other organizations that and departments that they're working with. Part of leading is to set a positive example and set a consistent and positive example. What many managers may not realize, especially as new managers, is that everybody's watching everything they are doing from the very first day on the job as a new manager, and how they act and how they perform is the example that they are setting for the team and even the brand for themselves that they are creating. They also need to provide direction and guidance and know when to step in and provide that direction and guidance to others when they need help. Well, how do you develop these leadership skills? Is first, of course, seek out leadership training. They can also study other successful leaders. Look at what other leaders have done that has contributed to their success. But maybe even more importantly, and this is something you can draw out with your new manager, is asking them about poor managers or poor leaders that they've worked with, because I can tell from my own personal experience, I've actually learned more from the terrible leaders and terrible bosses and the terrible managers that I've had. And of course, learning from mistakes and successes. It's not comfortable in the middle of it, but there's so much ripe opportunity to look back in the review mirror and recognize that, gosh, if I would have done this differently, I could have done it better. But a missed one many times is successes. What is it that really caused this success to happen? Not that you need to harp on it, but there is still are still some jewels of learning that can happen from the successes that your new manager is having. Number four, I'll list here is problem solving skills. New managers, they need to be able to solve problems, and new managers will encounter a variety of challenges and problems that require very creative solutions many times. Part of their job is to identify problems, obstacles, and issues. You also want to determine the action that they need to take to overcome. And they may need to do this with the people on their team or someone who's responsible for getting the work done. And then, of course, implement those actions. Problem solving skills can be developed by learning to identify the true cause of problems. Many times, new managers will jump on what appears to be the obvious root cause or the reason for an issue or a problem or an obstacle. But taking time to make sure they're clear about what really has caused the problem. There are systems and frameworks and processes to identify what might be some solutions. One I'd many times like to use with managers is identify what are two or three, maybe even four potential solutions that could apply. And then identifying, well, of these two or three or four solutions, which of them are best and why. Number five for new managers is relationship skills. Building relationships includes working well with the new manager's teams, of course, their peers, and even their senior managers. Truly, genuinely caring about the success of other people. You probably have heard the Jim Rohn quote that says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that goes right along with being genuinely concerned and you care about the success of others, not only on your team, but of course your peers and anyone who the new manager is working with. I had this conversation in a workshop I did actually with one of my corporate clients, and we talked about dealing with and handling conflict. And one of the concepts we talked about is that when there is a conflict and a very difficult conversation you may need to have, it only gets harder with time. It never gets easier. You should really have that conversation as soon as you reasonably possibly can, because the longer you wait, it only gets harder. The way to develop these skills, seeking feedback from others, it is a relationship building exercise where you genuinely do want to know their perspective, and you appreciate their feedback and you appreciate their perspective, and that kind of thing builds relationships. New managers also should be having regular and recurring one-on-one meetings with each person on their team. Now, for each manager, it's going to look a little bit different. Number six out of the six is having effective decision making skills. New managers, they are ultimately responsible for making decisions that impact the team and the organization. Part of this decision making is being able to gather and analyze data. Make sure they're making informed decisions and timely decisions. What I often say is that your decision making needs to be defendable, right? Whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, you can defend how you came about your decision, what resources and what tools did you use. One of the resources I coached leaders on is going back to like the mission and vision of the organization or of the team. If your informed decision is based on the direction of the organization or the team or the goals that they're trying to accomplish, typically that's a defendable decision. Even if it ended up not being a good decision, you can defend it. But it's also got to be timely. It's not something you can just sit back and not make a decision. What do they say? Not making a decision is making a decision. So you got to remember that. The ultimate success for a manager, and a manager who is moving from manager to leader, is having the team make more decisions. And part of that is training your team in decision making so that they are developing new skills amongst the team, how to make effective decisions, and ultimately maybe without the manager, so that they're making more autonomous and independent decisions. The way to develop decision making skills is to seek out training and mentorship. Of course, like we've been talking about, practicing critical thinking and analysis. There's all sorts of tools about how to create your critical thinking skills, and then seek out diverse perspectives and opinions, especially the devil's advocate, or the person who's always arguing, or maybe the person who always sees the how this can't be done. Maybe understanding, well, where are they coming from? That may not be the basis of the decision, but seeking out those different perspectives and opinions. Developing these skills requires ongoing practice, reflection, and a willingness to learn and grow as a manager. Managers need to seek out opportunities to develop these skills and ask for help, of course, along the way. When mastering the transformation from manager to leader, here are the six essential skills new managers need that we just covered. Number one is communication skills. They've got to be effective and efficient communicators. They've got to be also very good. Number two, which is time management and identifying and rightly prioritizing all of the work that's being done. Number three is leadership skills. They need to demonstrate the kind of leader that they want their team to also be. Number four is problem solving skills. They need to be able to effectively identify obstacles and issues and problems and implement solutions. Number five is relationship skills. They've got to have strong relationships, definitely with their team, but also with peers and their senior managers. And number six is decision making skills. They need to be able to make confident decisions and ultimately push decisions into the team. Leadership is simple, but it is not easy. Acquiring and developing these key skills begins the transition from manager to leader of high performing teams. I'm hired to work with new managers to develop their skills and help them to transform into authentic leaders of teams. If you would like to help your new managers prioritize where to focus their development first, go to ChristopherRJones.com, where you can access the leadership diagnostic tool for new managers. It's a simple tool with 21 questions. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to complete, and you'll get an immediate score right there on your screen, as well as a follow-up detailed report. You can relate to anything that I shared today, or if you'd like to ask me any additional questions, I would love to talk with you. Put a comment right here and I'll respond. You can also DM me or reach out to me through my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn at I am Christopher Jones. You can find more information and other free resources when you go to ChristopherRJones.com. Thank you for joining us today. Come back next week for another episode. Next week.